Well, hello and welcome back to the Grey Wolf RV channel. My name is Colin, and in today's episode we are going to be continuing the series of a deep dive on this 2024 Winnebago 2108 FBS FLX. Yes, that's right, this is the Flex model. As you may have seen in the 2108 FBS video on the channel that was produced in partnership with Arcan RV, this Flex model has a lot of unique features to it that really start to push it beyond the boundaries of the standard model in really meaningful and specific ways. And so this series, we're going to break it down into the different categories. Today's episode, we are going to be looking at the electrical system, but in other episodes you can check out elsewhere on the channel, probably on this side here somewhere. Those are going to be looking at the HVAC, otherwise known as the heating, ventilation, and air conditioning system, and so on and so forth. So I do encourage you to check out those videos. Now, as for today's topic, we're going to start at the top and work our way down. So welcome to the roof of the 2108 FBS FLX. And what we can see immediately is that there are two 200-watt Go Power solar panels. Now, this differs from the non-FLX version in that this has 400 watts of combined total solar output, where the non-FLX simply has 200 watts. We will get into later in terms about the system capacity. And if I can figure out which specific model these panels are, I'll include it in the description down below, but I'm not exactly sure. I did some research on Go Power's website. They have a number of different panels, many of which look very, very similar, but I'm going to try to reference that if I can. For those who are keen, there are a barcode here which reads 200 or 200-202-306-0037332. Over here we have the Go Power and the 200-watt label. They're a silver frame. It's also worth mentioning that Winnebago uses the Go Power solar connector, which they've done a really nice job covering up to make sure that there's no water intrusion down into the RV itself. And that's a really nice tight integration that we can see here. I'll also take this as an opportunity just to remind you that if you are getting a RV with a solar panel, be sure to periodically come up and clean it off, because all the road dust, debris, and just that which is blowing around in your area can and will impact the solar panel's performance. So if these cells are partially obscured, even just with that thin layer, then they're no longer functioning such that they're not maintaining the battery in the trailer. That is especially important if you're not connected to shore power for long-term off-season storage. But even when you're just out using the actual trailer and you're expecting, good performance out of 400 watts of solar, and if perhaps you are not receiving that, then again, just make your way up onto the roof here and be sure to clean off the solar panels. Now, making our way down from the roof onto the front driver's side of the trailer, we can see this sticker saying solar on the side, Go Power, compatible with any portable solar kit, rated for 20 amps. Yeah. The reason why I'm shaking my finger is because what we'll see next with the MPPT solar charge controller is that's only a 30 amp charge controller. So maybe even if this plug is capable of 20 amps, the system is not. So I think that might be slightly misleading. Nevertheless, there is a plug here. It's a dual prong. My understanding is this is a universal style plug, even if it is a Go Power plug. And I believe it's universal because it's saying compatible with any solar kit. So why would you want this? Well, as I vaguely understand it, each 200-watt solar panel is capable of outputting up to 10 amps. So when you have a 30 amp charge controller, as this RV does, each 200 panel on the roof, 10 amps plus 10 amps is 20 amps total, which leaves 10 additional amps of available system capacity or handling capacity for input. Now, a very fair question might be, well, why don't they just add a third panel on the roof? And there's a few reasons for that. First and foremost, that's real estate. There simply might not be enough room up on the roof. All of the other sort of accoutrement, whether that is aerials, antennas, air conditioners, exhaust flaps, that sort of thing. Second, forced cost onto the consumer. So adding 3 panels or 600 watts up on the roof is awesome, but at the same time, then you have to pay for that. And that may be above and beyond what your needs and requirements are. Third, if you are in higher latitudes or Canada or Alaska, et cetera, then the angle of the sun is not going to be perpendicular with the panels, which again, my understanding of solar panels is the more direct, more efficiently they can operate. Whereas if the sun is at a low glancing angle, I don't believe that the solar panels can operate as efficiently. So what you can do is you can get a portable solar kit, and you can set that up in such a way that you can orient it directly and even track the sun as it moves across the horizon, especially when, as is this case right now, it's very low in the horizon. So again, that's only, probably, I'd say 20 degrees down into the horizon. And yet it's, I think, 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So that's very low as opposed to being, straight up and above us as you might be at, say, lower latitudes or, in the summer months in the North American hemisphere. So what they've done is they've just given you the option for how you want to use the system. With that said, these are not the biggest storage compartments. So if you're carrying around an additional 200 watt panel, look for one that folds up or like a 200s that you can daisy chain, but you're probably going to end up carrying those in your tow vehicle. Now, relocating up here to the front passenger side of the trailer, we're going to go ahead and access this interior storage compartment, taking note of the 1-inch thick composite doors with the magnetic holdback. And on the front wall here, we can see our Go Power 30 amp MPPT solar charge controller. Now, I'm going to reference my phone here with regards to the difference between an MPPT and a PMW charge controller. The MPPT is an upgrade in that what it does is it operates the panels at their most efficient voltage and then converts it into the ideal voltage for the battery. So, for example, the panels could be outputting 30 volts, but then this charge controller is capable of changing that down to, say, 15 volts, which might be the optimal charging for a 12-volt battery. Whereas my understanding is a PWM, standing for pulse width modulation charge controller, the output of the panels has to equal the input of the battery. So your solar panels might be putting out 30 volts, but if your battery can only charge at, say, 15 or 17 volts or 12 or whatever that looks like, then you would effectively be operating at like half the capacity that your solar panels are, which is obviously not great. Now, MPPT, worth mentioning, stands for maximum power point tracking, and I believe that is simply just a reference to that conversion that it's doing, allowing the panels and the battery and optimizing both so that you can get the most charging out of the panels that you have. So taking a closer look at the actual charge controller itself, we can see 30 amp MPPT solar charge controller. We have waterproof ignition protection. So I believe this is the power input and from the actual panels before it goes into this charge controller. What it does, I have no idea. More so, this looks to me like a thermal probe. I'm not sure why that is in the storage compartment. But yeah, there are many components of this which I can and perhaps should do a future video on. If that is of interest, then I can do like a whole dedicated video on this Go Power unit. And if that is something that you guys want, then what I'll do is I'll do some more research specifically on this as it applies to this trailer. So I'll speak with Go Power and with Winnebago to try to get more information for you. But in a general sense, this is what we have. Now, from that Go Power 30 amp solar charge controller, that's going to flow into the electronics that are located on the back of this cover. So this is the storage capacity for the 2108 FBS and similar models. However, it's worth noting that on the FLX package, you do sacrifice some space for the electronics behind here. So what is behind here? Well, there are two components. First, there is the Xantrax XC Pro 3000, which is a 3000 watt inverter charger combo unit, and the Lithionics 320 amp hour battery, model number GTX 12V 320-E2-107-CS200. Before we get ahead of ourselves here, the Go Power Solar Charge Controller, as I understand it, will feed directly into and charge the Lithionics battery, as it does have a built-in BMS or battery management system, and that Go Power unit is now delivering in a direct DC current straight to the battery. If, however, you're connected to shore power, it's the Xantrax Freedom XC Pro 3000 that is going to convert that AC shore current into a DC current to charge the battery, and vice versa. As it's an inverter charger, it can also take that DC current from the battery, invert it into AC current to power the actual trailer. And I'm going to get into this in a bit more detail once we make our way inside, but this is a really cool setup that Winnebago is doing here that I actually, hand to heart, don't know of any other RV manufacturer that's doing. But in terms of the, let's say the supply chain of energy, then this is the way that it's going to go. What I'll do now is we'll make our way back onto the driver's side of the coach to show you with connecting to shore power. So there's nothing really unique or special that we're looking at here, but this is your 30 amp connector service for shore power. So the best way to think about this trailer is it essentially has two systems. You can have your shore power that's either plugged in at the campsite or at a house or whatever, or you have your onboard power. And the way that your onboard power, that Lithionics battery, can be charged is either from your shore power into this plug here. It goes to the Xantrax Freedom XC Pro 3000 inverter charger, charges the battery. If I was to unplug this or not be connected to the grid, then that battery is then going to feed back through the inverter charger and power the coach. Similarly, the solar is also coming down and charging the batteries through that Go Power solar charge controller that we just had a look at. So it's input A through solar or input B through shore power. Now, last but not least, if we take a look in the driver's side of the storage compartment, beyond my weight distribution hitch and all my chocks and things, we can see two really important items here. The first one on the right is a 250 amp circuit breaker. This is exactly what you'd find in your residential home. And the reason being is that this Lithionics 320 amp hour battery, this is the OEM model, OEM referring to original equipment by the manufacturer. So this was spec'd and installed directly by Winnebago. Fun fact, if you haven't seen any of my other videos, is that Winnebago actually acquired Lithionics because of how great these batteries actually are. Nevertheless, if, however, the coach was pulling too hard, then this will flip and shut off. On the left here, we can see a really nice, very minimal, arguably should have some signage around it, button, and it's flashing blue. This is the nicest system cutoff. By pressing and holding this button, it will disconnect the trailer from the battery, but what it will not do, as I've been told, is it will not interrupt the solar to the battery. So if you are parking this trailer for any, duration of time for storage purposes, come in here, press hold, turn it off. That will still allow the solar panels to charge and maintain the battery without having any parasitic draw coming from the trailer itself. So a note on the actual Lithionics battery is it has to be, arguably, in my opinion, but objectively speaking as well, the best RV battery on the market. I'm not sponsored by Lithionics, although hit me up. nor am I, do I have any official affiliation with Winnebago at this time. Nevertheless, I say that because, one, the Lithionics batteries have gone through a absolute gauntlet of safety certification and testing. And this is actually something that I was having a conversation with them, and I kind of said, I said, like, your batteries are really good because they in my research, they're the best size to storage capacity / density on the market. I'll kind of put the dimensions on the screen now. But compared to other batteries like a Renogy or Victron Energy, Lion Energy, all of the other energy related companies, this has 320 amp hours for what is roughly only like a 30 to 50% increase in size. That's compared to a 100 amp hour lithium ion battery. Moreover, there are very few lithium-ion batteries on the market with built-in integrated heating elements. But I mentioned about the safety. So if I just look at my cheat sheet here, we can see that this battery has gone through the UL standard for safety testing criteria, UL 157 gaskets and seals, UL 508 industrial control equipment, UL 991 test for safety related controls employing solid state devices, UL 1642 lithium batteries, UL 1998 software in programmable components, UL 1973 2018 batteries for use in stationary vehicle auxiliary power and light electric rail applications. Super cool, light electric rail. It's also gone through UNDOT or Department of Transportation for safety testing criteria. Test T1 altitude simulation. This test simulates air transport under low pressure conditions. Test T2 thermal test. This test assesses the cell and battery seal integrity. Test T3 vibration. This test simulates vibration during transport. This is an RV. These things bounce around like the back of the bus. Test T4 shock. This test simulates possible impacts during transport, i.e. vehicle collision or other objects, although it is protected by this wall structure. Test T5 external short circuit. This test simulates external short circuit. So, maybe a tree comes up or a bar or something, entrains into this compartment. Test T6 impact crush. These tests simulate mechanical abuse from an impact and vehicle accident. This is a vehicle. Test T7 overcharge. This test evaluates the ability of a rechargeable battery to withstand an overcharge, especially when you're dealing with multiple different components. Maybe there's a lightning strike, whatever. I don't know. I'm not a battery expert, but what I can tell you is right above this battery is where your head is when you're sleeping. And if there is any compromise to the battery, I don't want that thing going off in the middle of the night. So I can appreciate what Lithionics has done here. And the conversation I was having with them is I was sort of not calling them out, but I was saying, hey, look, the cost of this 320 amp hour battery here in Canada is approximately $4,900 Canadian at the time of recording, which is the fall of 2023. That works out to $1,531 per 100 amp hours, which compared to other companies like Victron Energy, that's approximately 50% more expensive. And that's not a small difference. But when you think about it from an application here, I would have to have had 3.2, not that that's possible, battery in the 100 amp hour capacity, which would take up quite a bit of space. Whereas there's sufficient space back here that this system is even expandable for a second 320 amp hour Lithionics battery. Furthermore, as mentioned, this has an integrated heating element in it, which very few on the market do. Now, I have read a claim that this can charge down to minus 20 Celsius. It's worth noting, though, I think what that means is ambient minus 20 Celsius, because the actual integrated internal heating element will turn on at plus 3 Celsius and turn off at plus 5 Celsius. So as the ambient temperature is getting low, you get down to plus 3, click, on it goes, because lithium-ion batteries, as I understand it, cannot or will not be able to take a charge in freezing temperatures or when those cells are frozen. So my understanding was speaking to Lithionics and reading through their publicly available literature is that in minus 20 Celsius conditions, that heating element is capable of maintaining those cells at a temperature for which they can safely take a charge. So down in that minus 20 Celsius, that solar can still charge and top up those batteries. So that's really important when you consider camping in high altitude or remote areas like, here in Canada or Alaska or wherever you are in the United States or lower 48. All right, so we've made our way inside of the trailer, and we're going to take a look at the internal monitoring that comes equipped here on the FLX model. So up at the top, we have the Go Power MPPT solar charger monitoring. This one is model GP, presumably for Go Power, dash RVC, that's Romeo Victor Charlie dash R. In all fairness, this is a pretty basic display. It does have the ability to monitor and change some functions as I understand it, but as you can see here, BLE, it is Bluetooth enabled. So Go Power is really encouraging you to get the most out of this, most functionality out of this charge controller, to download their proprietary Go Power app and to make your changes through there. But at a glance, credit where credit is due, this will tell you the solar. So we can see right now we're operating at 40.3 volts, sorry, 40.8 volts just jumped up, which is putting out 1.5 amps. And the battery is sitting at 13.5 volts with a possible output of 4.3 amps. So we can see down here, there is the temperature 82 Fahrenheit. I think that's the battery temperature, or perhaps this is the temperature probe that we saw sitting in that storage compartment, presumably because this unit has a specific operating temperature. So not really sure. I'll input that information down below if I can figure it out. We can also see that right now this battery is in a bulk charging phase, but it does not tell us what the actual battery capacity is sitting at. The reason being is because we need to download the Lithionics proprietary app for that. So Lithionics has developed an app, and that will give you a lot more detailed and in-depth information about the battery. So we can see here on the Lithionics app, the battery is currently sitting at 68% with a voltage of 3.4. So let's compare that up here. Voltage is 3.5, so pretty accurate. Current plus 1 amp, power 13.4 watts, battery temperature 48 Fahrenheit, BMS temp 51 Fahrenheit. Let's see if we can go in and change those units to Celsius versus freedom units. So battery temperature is plus 9 Celsius, BMS temperature 11, state is on, time remaining 4 days 5 hours at sort of current load. We can swipe over, we have a whole number of parameters here. So cool information, but Lithionics has to go through this, their own proprietary app. Below that, we have the Xantrax panel, and this is a super important note. This panel has a power button. Why is that super important to note? Well, there is, as I mentioned before, parasitic drains that can come from internal components, such as the inverter charger itself. We can just hear the microwave blinking on behind us, and I'll kind of get into a little bit more detail about that in a second. Nevertheless, this inverter charger just sitting, not actually charging or powering any or inverting any devices, there's still a energy consumption that comes from that. I don't know if that's like a built-in inefficiency from all inverter chargers. I know it's not unique to Xantrax. I'm not an electrician, so I'm not sure how or why that exactly occurs. Nevertheless, what you want to do is to cycle that on or off at night if you're not using it. However, let's say you have a laptop and you plug that in and you're just like, oh, I'll charge it overnight. You're going to need to leave this on so it can charge that. If you have no electronics in the actual RV itself that you need to be powering from an AC current, then at the end of each night you can just come in, press that, turn off the inverter charger, and save and really maximize, you know, your energy consumption and usage. Nevertheless, this is called the Xantrex Freedom X, and it has a nice little backlight on here. I'm going to overlay a couple of images because right now you can see we have a battery which indicates 3 bars. What is 3 bars? Well, we know from the Lithionics app that's 68%, and it has this little logo here, which is actually super neat logo. Whoever designed that logo, kudos to you. There's some dots up top, and then there's a flat bar on the left hand side of this logo, and that indicates direct current. And on the have side we can see like a sine wave which indicates alternating current, because that's how alternating or AC current works, AC being shore power from the house, DC being direct current that you'd get from a battery. So it's going from DC to AC. Now, if we were plugged into shore power, you would see the reverse image of this logo, where it would be that sinusoidal wave function being split into a DC, which means it's converting AC to DC. And you might also see something that says bypass onto the electronics. The Xantrex inverter charger is capable of, and as I believe all inverter chargers are, capable of directly charging the battery and converting that AC to DC, as well as allowing that AC to bypass the inverter charger at the same time. Now, what's important to note when I turned on the inverter charger using the Freedom X control panel is that Winnebago has spec'd a 3,000 watt inverter in this trailer. And for context, that is absolutely gargantuan. Just consider this for a moment. You know, you could be anywhere in the world. You could be on the side of a mountain. You could be in the middle of a desert. You could be, you know, in the Arctic tundra, wherever. And you can walk into your Winnebago trailer, put a cup of coffee in the microwave, and heat it up without being attached to a generator or shore power or anything. That concept blows my mind that they're able to do that. But it doesn't actually end there, because that 3,000 watt inverter is hooked up to every single electrical out that you can see in this entire trailer. It will power this TV. It will power the plugs to charge your toothbrush in the bathroom. It will power a blender. It will provide power to the plugs for charging your laptops. It will do it all. 3,000 watts is massive. And I cannot tell you how important that is to the functionality of this trailer, because, you know, I'll put myself in the hot seat here. You know, when I was shopping for a trailer, my expectation was if I saw a plug, I could plug something into it. So it doesn't matter where you are or what you want to plug in. This trailer is capable of doing it. And I just think that that's absolutely amazing. So this episode was definitely on the longer side of things, even though we had a lot to cover and a lot of different components and systems. And I really hope I did a fair job of actually explaining it to you and not confusing you more. If you have any questions, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below, and I will do my absolute best to answer them. In the meanwhile, definitely go and check out some of the other episodes on the deep dive series, because even if you're not specifically looking at the 2108 FBS FLX, maybe you're cross shopping or considering about going, you know, between the non-FLX and the FLX, hopefully this series of videos will really allow you to get into the details between those two trailers, as I personally found it really difficult initially to understand the differences. And I actually do plan on doing a video where I just kind of sit down and, in my experience and in my perspectives, I'll talk about the non-FLX and the FLX and how I see both of those, you know, fitting into the Winnebago lineup, and who the potential ideal customers are for those, different products, because they do fundamentally deliver a different experience and cater to different needs and wants for different demographics. And if you've made it this far in the video, please consider subscribing, because I think you'll find future and past and present videos not only entertaining, but informative at the same time. So thank you very much for watching. I do sincerely appreciate it. You take care, and bye for now.